Welcome to the NEPA Scene Podcast. This is episode 14. We're coming to you from the Stewed at 258 Studios in Scranton. I'm Rich Howells. I'm the founder and editor of NEPA Scene.
I'm Lauren Coralico, and I'm sitting on this side of the room this week.
I am Mark Dennebaum, and I haven't moved.
I'm Jim Reynolds, and I run the Stewed here at 258 Studios.
And we're here with illustrator and educator Ted Michalowski. And we're going to be talking about art and being a courtroom illustrator and running an art social group called Synaesthesia Social. He has a lot of insight for us, and he'll be a fascinating guest. Won't you, Ted?
Oh, thank you, Rich. Well, now I have to be.
Yeah, we're going to get into all kinds of different...
Yes, you will have to be.
Pressure's on.
Yes.
It's weird sitting next to Lauren.
Is it comforting?
Yeah, I feel good about it.
Okay, good.
Okay.
But we'll first we'll just I'll just briefly go down a couple things that's going on the site. We'll have some photos of Lee Bryce at the Kirby Center. Usually we don't have country music stuff on there, so that'll be a little different.
Was Florida Georgia Line there yet?
Not yet. They were.
I keep sneaking.
They're at the arena, so they're not.
I keep sneaking it in.
You do. Yeah. You do. Sooner or later, we're going to talk about them. We have local rock band ADD. We have an in-depth interview with them coming up.
Their songs really switch halfway through.
Really?
Yeah. Like they'll be in the middle of a rock song, and then all of a sudden, like they'll like bake cupcakes.
Oh.
Yeah, because they have ADD.
Why are you lying to me?
Yes, of course I'm lying to you, Lauren. That's all we do to each other.
That's why you have to go and read the interview to figure out if he was lying to you or not.
I think he was, but I shall read the interview.
Fair enough. We'll have an Oscars story for you to kind of keep you up to date on what's going with the Oscars and prepare you
That's
for
next. Is that to prepare you for?
Yeah,
and then we're going to do like a post-mortem.
Yeah,
next
yeah.
week?
And then we can talk about it next week. Yeah, definitely.
Sure. Okay.
So
Finally, something I know about.
We have some interviews and some videos with several of the performers that'll be at our midwinter showcase at the Woodlands. That's on Friday, February 27th. I actually have a poster right here, so I'll hold that up.
Angry Carlton tried to convince me to buy tickets.
Yes, we have a lot of cool performers at this event. Thank you, Ted, for helping hold that up. We have comedians, poets, musicians. We've got a little bit of everything, and so you're going to be able to preview a lot of what you're going to see there. You're going to have some interviews, some videos of these guys performing at our open mics on Tuesdays, and you'll see what's in store on Friday, February 27th.
Which everyone should go to. On a quick tangent about that, if you did not do that, I would not have met Zach Hammond,
right?
Dan Hopple, and Skip Monday.
Yeah,
and I've found them incredibly fascinating, unique, amazing individuals, and it's because of you that I've met them. So I want to say thank you.
You're welcome. I actually I had known Zach a little while before, but we weren't, I had seen him around and stuff like that and talked to him a couple times. And everybody else I kind of got to know through the open mics that we've been doing at the Woodlands on Tuesdays. And we've discovered a lot of great talent. And I think we're going to be developing those kinds of events further. We have something we're working out with Thirsties and Oliphant coming up too. That we'll be able to announce.
We're thirsties. Right, Jimmy?
You're right.
I hope the GoPro just picks you up hitting your head off the microphone.
It turned off again.
Son of a bitch.
No way.
Yeah, we have some things coming up, both at the Woodlands and Thirsties coming up that I can't wait to talk about. But we'll have to make sure that's all.
When can we announce
first.
that?
Very soon.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I actually have to talk to T sometime this week, and we'll figure that out. But
he's 140% gung ho.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know, and I'm really excited about some of the stuff that we're going to be doing there. So
yeah, I think it's gonna be a big deal. Hopefully, it'll be a big deal.
It's really nice how Mark thanks you for all you do.
Yeah, it is
That's
nice.
great.
Yeah, I usually don't do that. I'm trying to offset my anger with balance of being over complimentary but sincere. I mean, everything that I'm saying, I'm just
right.
I usually don't like. You're the best.
the little bit of anger that I had this week, I put into my infinite improbability column this week was on 50 Shades of Grey, so I talked about that a little bit. Mainly just the fact that people seem to not get that. There's so much focus on the sex scenes and the BDSM stuff and that sort of thing, and that there's quote unquote controversy around that. That really, the thing that bothers me about it is the fact that he's physically and emotionally abusive through the entire book and through the entire film, and that we're supposed to be accepting of that.
Are we sure he's not just overconfident?
Well, if you mean like putting tracking devices in your phone so you can figure out where you are at all times, isolating you from your friends and family, telling you how to live your life and down to your diet, then no, I'm gonna say it's a little.
Mark did that. Mark made me get this app once. It was called Find My Friends, and it was like a homing device on my phone, and it followed me everywhere. I followed.
So
him
in
back,
other words,
though.
you're saying Marky is Christian Grey.
Yes. And also, you know what? That kind of represents every insecure relationship I've ever seen. So
Well, it's I mean, it started out as a Twilight fan fiction, so it makes sense that it would reflect Twilight, which is basically the same exact thing.
I know that you hate. I don't know if you hate this about me, but I know that you dislike this about me. Is that I don't read books. I'll read like game.
You read cereal boxes?
Jimmy does. Jimmy knows the back of every cereal box since
Life cereal
1978.
specifically.
I don't. It's just, and I think I've said why. It's because by the time I get to the bottom of the page, I don't know what the hell the top of the page is about. So it kind of frustrates me. So I was just like, I'm just not going to read that. The thing that not necessarily bothers me, but you know what they call 50 Shades of Grey in Europe?
No.
A movie. So that's what bothers me about like being over here where we can show Rambo, which I think is awesome.
Right.
And people just get blown to shit.
Yeah.
Not, orally.
Right.
But with,
well, that would be terrible and horrible, and we have to.
Right.
We have
God
to
forbid.
keep the children away from that.
Right. And then, I read that, she didn't have one orgasm in the entire movie. And, we can show men having orgasms. It's just this weird thing that happens where it's like, even sexually women are not treated in a honest light.
Right.
And
That was pretty close to beatboxing.
that's called me being nuts. It's a gimmick.
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole fucking
The whole
movie's
thing.
a gimmick.
Absolutely.
250 million worldwide just based on like leather and an ass. Like I just
thought it was.
Wasn't that the original name of the story?
leather and an ass.
Didn't Fleetwood Mac have an album called that?
Leather and an ass.
Leather and.
It might have been the solo record that Mick Fleetwood and Stevie Nicks did.
Oh.
Because that was a torrid affair. I don't subscribe to that bullshit.
I just
but
thought
I
it
love
was.
Notting Hill.
I just thought it was funny that the guy who I don't know if you've seen The Fall on Netflix. It's a BBC show.
Oh no, yeah, I haven't seen that. But did you ever see the Fall, the Tarsem movie? The guy who did The Cell. Did you ever see The Cell?
Yes.
Did you ever see that movie, The Fall?
That
Oh,
was beautiful.
It was a beautiful
Yeah.
film. Amazing
Beautiful.
film. I have that queued. I do want to see The Fall.
It's very, very good. And the guy who plays Christian Grey is the serial killer in
Oh,
this.
no, wait.
Yes,
Do you
I don't
ever
think it's a
say-
surprise.
I'm like-
Lauren.
it's
I don't
not a
think-
surprise. It's
Yeah.
revealed in the very first episode in like the first few minutes that he's
Okay.
a serial killer.
Yeah. Rich is not the spoiler guy.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Enjoying your slang, do you ever say cued in the stewed?
Queued in the stew.
Tonight, cued in the stewed, we have Lauren, say her name.
Krolico.
Krelico.
That was pretty good.
After 13 episods, 14 episodes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I better get it right. All right, so 50 Shades of Go Fuck Yourself next.
Yeah.
No, I read your article. I mean, you brought some good points, and I think it's, I like how that when you do infinite probability that it takes what you think it's going to be about,
Right.
and it's not.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
Like, it's just a whole different perspective on how to look at it, and I really enjoy that.
Can I
Okay,
just throw
I do
out
read the things that I am
Because-
reading are infinite probability.
Okay,
that's
good.
what I'm reading.
Because there is a hashtag going around, $50, not 50 shades.
Yes.
I think if you have enough disposable income to spend on this film to go see it, you could probably afford to donate a couple dollars to your local.
B&M, BDSM club.
No, heavens, Mark. No, I'm trying to do something for serious this time. To your local women's
This time?
shelter or any sort of support system.
To your
because
local women's shelter?
There's a
I think that's a great idea.
There was a USA Today article about the NFL's reaction to all these things that they're doing to bring awareness to the fact that so much
the NFL
domestic
presents
violence has been
the
going on in the
reactions.
country and everything, and it's actually increased call volumes tremendously for a lot
Because of
of
the NFL
programs
thing?
because of the NFL, because of the Ray Rice and all the publicity around it. The support's there, but they're strapped for cash to actually help any of the victims turn into survivors.
You know the
so
thing.
definitely.
Do you know the thing that's very hard for people to understand
What's that?
about the Ray Rice situation is that we can all look at that and be appalled. And I think as a civilized society, we looked at anybody who watched it, looked at it, was appalled. Not to make excuses for that relationship dynamic, but she should have thrown him to the wolves.
It's not always that easy, Mark.
I know that, but when it's public in a way like that, I think you're safe. And I realize that there's a lot of situations where, like, you know, there's nowhere to turn. I think I'm talking about that specific situation. She could have taken that as an opportunity, you know, to do something better.
Same thing with Rihanna.
Yeah, she could have. And after that
for
happened,
being an idol.
yeah, but after that happened, she kind of got quiet. You know what I mean? Like she should have stood up and said, you know,
She still
especially
dates him though, right?
no.
Oh, I thought they still had an affair with each other.
God, I hope not.
This is probably a conversation for another day. Let's just leave it at it's never really the victim's fault.
Oh, no,
it's
I'm not
really
saying that.
hard
No,
to get out of that situation.
No,
if you're going, I know
if
it's
that's
not
what
what
you
you're saying.
deduced out of
no,
what
no,
I
no,
said,
no. I
that's
just
not
don't
what I
want.
said.
I just want to get back to if you have a couple bucks to spend on this movie.
50 Shades of Grey.
Go to wrcnepa.org/donate
Which is Women's Resource Center, which locally is one of the best organizations I've ever
and
seen.
they service Lackawanna County and Susquehanna County for anybody who needs support in terms of sexual abuse or domestic violence. So
or mental, you know,
All
abuse
sorts of-
doesn't have to be
yes.
physical.
that is correct.
Yeah,
So
it could be financial. It could be.
if we've insulted you
Mental.
by making fun of 50 Shades of Grey, you can make up for it and like
I think
Donate
that's up
a
to us
couple dollars.
to make up for it.
No.
No.
We don't apologize.
we
for
can't
it, so-
apologize for 50 Shades of Grey. It's not.
No.
It's neither
Yeah,
our place.
please don't think that what I said
Oh,
was,
no.
was for me to take, you know, the side of like it's Ray Rice's
It's
wife's
just
fault.
it's much harder.
She all I feel is that like, you know, given I'm just so bitter this week.
There's a
given
whole
the
process.
opportunity,
Yes.
Mark, let's talk about that. What's going on?
my bitterness.
Yeah, what's going on?
I'm gonna try my best not to go into details, but at the core of it is that kindness kills you faster than a bullet.
That's for sure.
And it really bothers me, and it's multiple layers. It's about people who are ungrateful. It's about people who don't see when you know there's people who are extending a hand for help, an offering of help, and sacrificing a lot of the things that you know run their lives, you know, because the moment you take up the responsibility of trying to help someone, you invariably have to make sacrifices in your life to make that happen. They don't realize it, and it's incredibly it's been very taxing over the last 2 weeks for quite a few of us to help, especially in my commune household Davidian complex. You know, everybody chipped in, and Jimmy, publicly, I want to apologize to you for all that nonsense.
No, it's okay. Well, that's what friends are for. You're a network, and you try to help each other out.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And
I know
would,
you've been there and will be there.
Yeah, so I've had to deal with, legal stuff, and it has nothing to do with me, but it's just me trying to help, trying to reach out that hand and be like, look, I just don't understand the youth of today. Like it just really it boggles my mind, this idea of selfishness to a point where it's without reason or perspective.
I'd love to do a whole podcast on the millennial stuff.
I would too. And it's not
I could contribute a lot.
Yeah,
I bet you could, I think that would be interesting.
Not.
I think it would.
I wouldn't. I'd like to do it, but I wouldn't like to do it in a way where it's like, fuck you. I would like to do it in a way where like help me understand.
Question as to why.
I'm really, and the thing is I think that like with every day we get older. Every day and I don't know if it's a generational thing where it's like we look back and we're, the music that we thought sucked, our parents loved. And now we're at a point where like, the music, the kids that, are like 14 to like 24 are like, oh, this is awesome. And we're like, that sucks.
Right.
I don't know if it's a generational thing. I don't know. But here's what I do know. If every generation kind of looks back and says, if every generation looks at the generation now and says, oh, they're a bunch of ungrateful bastards and blah, 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 like using that as a trend, I don't think we're doing better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it has caused a lot of frustration. It has caused a lot of pain, and it has caused a lot of, I don't know, because when I used to drink and go to bars and stuff, I was the guy who I would people watch, and I'd be like, there's going to be a fight within like 5 minutes of this group of people, and that group of people are like, that girl's going to cry, or just these, because for some reason I picked it up as a sixth sense where I'm like, I can see what is going on, and like that generation, I just don't. There's no like,
I see over
wrecking ball.
People.
Yeah, there's no where it's like, my boyfriend won't talk to me, the world's gonna end, and it's like and I kept saying like the world's like it gets better, like that whole it gets better campaign works way beyond the situation at hand.
Yeah,
and that's what bothers it can work for so much, and it can get better. And if you have a good support system, you have good people who trust you and believe in you and love you, that'll help. But you can lead a horse to water, but you can't teach it math.
Yeah.
Oh, Lauren, I'm so pissed.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Are you feeling any better now that it's behind you, or are you still kind of steamed about it?
I don't even know if it's it's one of those, like, I have I part of the reason you're
not sure if it's behind you yet.
No, and I have mental health issues, and they're not like mental health issues where it's I think everybody has bits and pieces of what I have, like where you obsess or you dwell or whatever, and you dwell on the negative, but you dwell on the positive, and I'm kind of in a place right now where I'm it's weird. Like part of me is like, fuck you, and the other part of me is like, oh, I still, for some strange mental reason or Christian guilt, I want to keep helping if I can.
Right.
Even my enemies, like, I feel that way. And I don't think I really have enemies, but it's like, if they were ever like, hey, my car's broke down, can you help me? I'm like, yeah, I'll be right there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Instead of being like, just go, don't ever call me again. You know what I mean? So I'm just pissed off about that.
You care too much. That's what your problem is.
Yeah, I think so. That might be what it is.
But then if you don't care, then we're in the problem where we were at before when you said that there's a problem with our youth.
That's another good cue to ask for some donations for these types of issues. Surely there must be someplace.
Oh, I'm sure that there is.
Ronald McDonald House?
That's a different issue.
What are they? I still don't know what the Ronald McDonald House does. Do they like?
I don't know either. I'm just. I thought it would.
Hey kids, here's a double cheeseburger.
I think it's for sick children.
Now I feel horrible.
Yeah, you should.
I didn't know. Like they don't like when you hear Ronald McDonald House. It's like
Yeah, they
like
don't-
saying the Taco Bell Foundation.
Right? Yeah, they don't necessarily get into it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird.
So
But yeah, I believe it's sick children.
I'm pissed. I'm real cynical this week. I'm real pissy.
Okay.
But that's part of my mood swings. Like I got troughs and valleys. Wait, that was the same thing. Peaks and valleys.
Well, art comes from good and bad. It comes from the peaks and valleys. Good art comes from that. Now,
that's a great cue for the Facts of Life theme song to come in.
Actually, I was going to cue you in, Ted. So,
excellent.
Would you agree with that, Ted, in terms of where art comes from, in terms of emotionality?
What could you repeat it?
Would you say that? What
did you think about the season finale of Lost?
Yeah, let's start there.
From where
I would
in
talk
you
about
does
Lost.
art happen?
You would. Yes. Where does art come from?
Internally.
Well, how did actually? How did you get?
I get it wired in.
How did you get involved?
I get it wired in.
How did you realize like this is what I want?
Well, actually, it ties into something you were talking about earlier on before the show started, talking about Birdman.
Oh.
And my connection to a greater appreciation of Birdman was working in a movie theater on May 29th, 1989, which you all know was the opening night of Batman with Jack Nicholson and Michael Keaton. And Michael Keaton, of course, is the star of Birdman, very much appropriately so. And how does that fit in? Oh, so I was 15 years old. And to answer your question,
are you local? Your whole life?
Mostly, yeah, mostly.
So is this up at the General Cinemas up at Viewmont Mall?
I did work at the General Cinema, but which then was knocked down to become Borders, which I worked also,
which is now BAM.
Yeah, but I started at the Eric 8, which is where I got to meet Jeff Fowler.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah.
We had on our podcast a while back. He's a local filmmaker.
Yeah, we had
he's a great friend.
My dad's company did the structural steel for the Eric. That whole thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and my whole thing was like, oh, we're going to get free movie tickets now. My dad's like, it's not how it works.
If you build it, you get shit.
Yeah. If you build it, you get paid. You don't get any.
Well, the guy who did when they became the Endless Mountains,
there's a great guy there. I thought he was. Who was the guy that ran that?
Was that Caldwell? Was that John Wayne Caldwell? Oh no, Castelli, Dave Castelli.
Yeah, he was kind of like 5'5", 5'4".
Right.
Okay.
Whole bunch of fives.
He
was the guy who hired me in 1989, and of course, as an usher, you're very much attracted to what goes on in the projectionist booth, and that's where I met a projectionist named Tom O'Neill, who was studying illustration in college at the time, and so that kind of wowed me because he was making these fantastical Frank Frazetta inspired drawings, which was the most inebriating thing I could see at 15 years old, which is what I wanted to do. And he had long hair and wore a black t-shirt and ripped jeans and rode a motorcycle and always had these gorgeous girls coming up to the door box asking for him. So I said, that's what I want to do.
I want to meet chicks.
So I want to grow my hair long, wear black t-shirts, rip jeans, ride a motorcycle, draw pictures, and
what year was this? 89?
Impress girls. 1989.
That's a good year.
So does that answer your question? Yeah, so that's how it all started. Now, that guy, Tom O'Neill, is currently out in L.A. doing the storyboards for The Flash.
TV show?
Yeah. And he did Lost.
Did he?
He did the storyboards for Lost, along with his other friend, Tim Bobko. So when I was in high school, I got to know guys who were graduating college in art school before I was graduating high school. So I kind of skipped ahead all those years of hanging out with the high school kids and making all those mistakes. And I was hanging out
Learning experience.
Yeah, I was hanging out with senior art students who were already, well, no, I guess that wouldn't be right to say they were beyond all the partying, but they taught me how to do it right. So,
yeah. Responsible party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fight for your right to party. Or no, pardon me.
Party for your right to fight.
You earn your right to fight. No.
Yeah.
You earn your right to party.
What the fuck did that even mean? Each one was just as good.
Well, no, these were guys who they all had this house together that would do all of their assignments, and then they partied. So they had something to celebrate. So the drawings meant something to them. So they weren't just going to college just to booze it up.
Life coach Rich would approve of this reward behavior.
Right, he would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
one of our earlier guests a while back.
Well, it's in terms of inebriation with alcohol or whatever substances, that's what drawing became. And when you're talking about the question of where art comes from or where it goes, it comes from stimulation, and it could be highly stimulating in itself. And I think that's the reason why I've never needed any type of substances.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, assume, that especially if you're a musician or if you're an artist or something like that. Oh man, you do something like that's creative. You had to be high or you had to be this or that, and that's not always the case at all.
Right.
That's there.
Right. It's just in you.
Otherwise, heroin would do art.
Right.
Or booze would do art.
And of course, its presence in people involved in the arts might be involved in whatever indulgences, but my heroes have always been totally driven to do what they do primarily, and that's make art.
Do you find being around people of, not exactly, they don't have to be the same discipline of what you like to do, but do you find that, being around people who just like to make something out of nothing, i.e. create, is beneficial to you? Or do you,
as you're saying that sentence, goosebumps were forming, because that's the key.
Right.
The key is being around people who are motivated, driven, passionate, whatever you want to call it. Because if you hang out with guys who smoke up and play video games, then you're probably going to do a lot of smoking and playing video games. And through some artist in residence work that I do, that's a major key in getting students to discover, locate, and pursue something they're really excited about.
I mean, do you, when you do that, do you have to like almost, because we work with, I'm actually fortunate enough to work with breaking ground poets, and I'll be the first person to tell you I don't know a damn thing about poetry, but just to see those kids grow and to see those kids get involved in something that they care about and that they're passionate about, and somebody needs to, somewhere along the way, Katie Wisnowski, I know she hates the praise and stuff like that, but she's there for those kids to kind of guide them and say, hey, do you ever try this? Do you ever do this? Do you ever, you know what I mean? Not like being totally making them subservient to what she wants. That's not what she wants at all. That's not what she tries to do. She tries to give, hey, maybe it's maybe the problem is just how you're looking at it.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So I mean, do you find that, working with, students and young artists growing up being like, here's some things to avoid.
Yeah. Well,
your best.
Mostly it's kept in the positive with here are the things to pursue. Let's talk about everything we're excited about. And if you keep it in the positive, all those negatives and avoidables tend to fade away.
Right.
Because they just become naturally less appealing. Yeah. And a great example is the Arts Alive program through the Pennsylvania Council on the Arts in the summer. And the students whom it targets, as well as who are attracted to it, are accelerated art students in visual arts as well as performance arts. And then it also looks to bring in students who are underprivileged. And the interesting thing is oftentimes underprivileged students are put with other underprivileged students. And that's great to give them the type of education or program or extracurricular events that would help them. But the interesting thing is you put a student who might be somewhat anchored in life with students who are totally accelerated in life. They tend to launch because then there aren't the excuses. There's not the resistance, and it's all positivity. And that tends to happen mostly through the arts. You don't see kids going to an accounting summer program in high school.
Really?
And getting all sorts of fired up.
What are some of the most important lessons that you feel you have to impart onto these kids that they should take away from the program?
Well, I think this is going to go into something later on that I'm sure you want to talk about, but right before the Hugo Selinski trial started, when I was there to draw the Hugo Selinski trial,
which one?
As the recent one for as a courtroom artist for WBRE and affiliates. Behind me, I heard some women saying very favorable things about the drawing, but they were directing it towards someone, which I could pretty much bet was a young person, and it was. So they had a young boy between them, and they were saying, look at what he does. Look at how wonderful it is. And I thought, well, isn't that nice that here in this situation, because the question you asked me is, in these environments, in an educational environment, what are some examples of how it really happens, how you make a dent and how you make an impact? Well, here was the least likely place for anyone to be inspired. You wouldn't expect to go to the Hugo Selinski trial and find inspiration. However, it took a quick turn, which I've learned to let go, and in the past I haven't, when I hear kind of a cousin to the dismissing comment that you say, if someone's creative, it's because of a drug. Also, if someone's talented, it's a gift. And if you've developed any type of skill, be it athletic, artistic, you know that it takes a lot of hard work. And it can certainly itch you wrong if you're someone dismiss it as a gift.
Right.
But then it's easier for someone to say it's a gift, because then they could say, well, the reason I can't do that is because it's a gift and I ain't got it. But the problem in this situation, which I felt compelled to speak up upon because I'm in education, is...
In the trial? In the
courtroom? Right before the trial, which isn't really the most convenient place to do this, to make a point. But I turned around and very calmly, politely said, that's fine if you insist. And this person insisted that what you're doing in front of me is a gift. And I said to her, if you ever had anyone living in your house learning to play the violin, you know that's not a gift, because the neighbors call up, they go out for dinner when your son is practicing, and it's not a gift, and it's hard work. So I said, if you want to insist that it's a gift and believe it's a gift, fine. But if you say that in front of this young boy whom you directed towards this drawing to trigger some fascination, which is the key to start it all.
Yeah.
If you say this is a gift, then you immediately restrict the aspirations he might follow. Because if he can't do it at first, which is the most likely scenario, then he's going to say, I'll never be able to do this because this gift was not given to me.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was a point I had to make in the Hugo Selinski trial.
So there was a kid watching the Hugo Selinski trial?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Look, here's what I want you to know is that out of a murder trial, something good kind of came out of it. That was totally unexpected.
That's true.
A young man might have been born into the arts that day.
So to bring it back into education, because let's finish. If you don't mind, I'd really like to keep on that track.
Sure.
We'll get into the courtroom stuff. Not that I'm playing control here, but I'm digging the beginning. So there's a greater connection to the artistic drive and talent to the athletic drive and talent, as one would think in high school, when the athletically driven kids totally detach themselves from the artistically driven kids. But maybe I see less of that, which is good. But there are a lot of elements that tie the two together, which of course is the dedication, and above all, especially in drawing, the hand-eye coordination, which is essential in courtroom illustration. And when I was in high school, there was a student who was the last picked every gym class for basketball. No one wanted this guy on the team.
And his name was Jim Reynolds.
Probably.
And poor Jimmy Poor Jimmy was always picked last, even if he was picked at all. Usually he was picked by the opposite team to say, you got him.
Yeah.
And this kid didn't know a double dribble from his belly button and would just flounder the ball every time, didn't have any presence on the court. Well, summer vacation came along and no one saw each other. And then the next school year starts. We go into gym class. The gym teacher throws the basketball in. No one wants to pick him. Poor Jimmy gets picked last. The game starts. Jimmy steals the ball, takes it down the other end of the court, sinks it. The other team takes the ball out. Jimmy steals it, takes it down the other end of the court, sinks it. And this repeats routinely until everyone gets so frustrated that they say, put him on the other team. And of course, we all ask him, what happened to you? And he said he was so tired of having everyone ridicule him for his poor skills at best that over the summer, he played in every court where there were kids with all different sizes and skill levels of kids until he could play and play well. And that's how it happens. And the same thing can happen with any type of skill.
Aww.
Well, that's my father was an artist, and he was always very good and very inspirational to me. And I tried to emulate that as a kid, and I think I just got frustrated. I didn't pursue it hard enough, and then I got into writing, and I kind of moved away from that. And I always kind of wish that maybe I had gone back to it at some point. So, you don't think at any point you can lose it either, that if it's in you,
No,
you
totally.
can always pick it up and go back
fast.
and do it again.
It goes fast. And oftentimes you might hear someone say, oh, what a waste of a gift I've been given. But you lose it fast, but you can get it back fast too.
Yeah. And what's interesting about your style is you pick, so many different mediums and things too. You can... right. Actually, while we were starting to talk, for those who are listening and not watching on the YouTube version, he started drawing Mark and Lauren over here, and I'm sure he'll continue that. But he can also do you can do ink drawings as well, watercolor, all that kind of stuff. And how do you decide what's appropriate for when, or you just kind of wing it?
Well, as you saw in here, I figured I'd be doing faster drawing, so I drew in pencil. But I don't have an eraser on me, and
Good.
I don't apologize. It's non-apologetic drawing.
Good.
No tolerance of erasist remarks. And so it all depends on the situation. Of course, you have a really nice carpet in here, so I don't want to make a mess with ink, and it depends on what I have with me. Now, if I'm in the court, I have a very small palette of watercolor, and I have some really nifty water brushes that have the water inside of them, and then I take a little container of water that'll refill.
Why is
them,
that
so
the norm for
compatible.
courtroom drawing?
It's not. The norm for courtroom drawing is toned paper and working in colored pencils. And people mostly work from the knuckle. They work a lot more tight.
Yeah.
And I try to work more cinematically, and what I mean by that is most of the courtroom artists that I see will try to show the whole entire scene. They'll do pretty much an establishing shot.
Yeah.
Of that. And I'll fire that away at you because you're a film guy and I respect that. Yeah, they'll do a wide shot. And I will zoom in on the key figure and put some supporting cast around him or her.
Yeah, I've seen you do a presentation on the courtroom drawings, and what I thought was interesting is like, for example, you would have the judge there, and then maybe you would kind of draw the flag a little bit over so that the flag actually kind of accentuated the drawing a little bit.
Right.
It might not be exactly where it was, but it kind of helps to paint the picture a little bit better, so that if you were in the courtroom, that's kind of what you would take away from it.
Yeah, it's a big liberty that I take, and I've never been called on it. No one's ever seemed to mind, but I certainly changed the room around a little bit, but without changing the story, because it is journalistic art. It's what they call reportage. It's the artist as witness. It's documentary art.
How did you get in how did you move from that kind of art into courtroom drawing? I think that's interesting in itself.
How did I get that kind of work?
Yeah.
I'm really glad you asked that, because I have a quote from someone that you can correct because it's someone you really like and can impersonate really well. And Woody Allen said, "What's the percentage? 90% of success in life is showing up." And interestingly enough,
You just started showing up to courtrooms?
the best, being in places, you can do that. You could easily show up and just start drawing and convince people. No, you couldn't convince people you're a courtroom artist because you need a press pass. But
I mean, these things are open to the public. So.
Sure, yeah. But most of the time, I work with great reporters on Hugo. I was with Andy Michalowski of Eyewitness News, and he's really great with arranging for me to be places. Also, a great help at that trial was John O'Connell, who was a privately commissioned courtroom artist by one of the attorneys, and he arranged for me to sit up a little bit closer. So this way I wasn't sitting in behind Hugo and the rest of the key figures, the prosecution and the defense, which is how it's been. And that's where I sat for Eric Frein, was in behind everything. And even though I keep wanting to keep the conversation on education, we keep pouring into courtroom. But to bring it back, how I got into these things, and on the Woody Allen quote is that I've just done what I've done, loved what I do, and done it around and in front of and for people. So then people know you do it. It's talent alone isn't going to work if you're going to be withdrawn. And oftentimes people who are more social or end up going to be where they need to be.
Well, it's like networking and stuff, isn't it? It's about just getting to know people and getting and having them trust you.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the term networking, but you say it very well.
How would you describe it?
I think when I think networking is strictly business oriented. You're getting to know people for what doors they can open for you. But I like to develop solid friendships, and that's what's been a big part of it.
But doesn't that help open the door too?
Well, sure, but it's not for that reason. And usually there are a lot of other factors involved.
I'm not. Please don't think that I'm sitting over here.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
It's. I network. If people don't connect,
sure,
then it doesn't matter. If you go to like these networking events or whatever like that, I mean, the sole purpose of you being there.
Sure.
But if you go to just regular social events, invariably, I think, sometimes the dirty word of networking does seem to happen.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. I mean, I'm not offended or anything.
Well, I don't know what you thought. You're like, well, I wouldn't call it that. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know the other word for it.
I think you hit the nail on the head with social, because I would describe you as a very social individual.
Well, thank you.
And I think being social is a big part of what you do.
Right. It's all about making art and making friends.
And watch this segue happen. So thank you for bringing up the idea that art just doesn't happen. Talent doesn't happen. You have to develop it. And I think that comes key from your education experience, which you do. Right. You are an educator.
Sure.
So before we complete the segue, maybe we can talk a little bit more about what you teach.
Sure. And also I've been through numerous schools. I'm really proud and excited to have come from and often see the presence of the University of Hartford Art School MFA program, the low residence program majoring in illustration that's run by Murray Tinkelman. And that's what changed everything for me, as well as seeing other students who are in it and have been in it. And that's the type of element where talking about networking versus a social fuel is these people all believe in what they do. It's like being a part of the same species, and we all talk the same language and get very excited about what we do and seeing what each other does, and it helps everybody launch. If you have the right people involved in anything, which I'm sure you know, if you have the right people above and by your side and who might be doing things for you, it's essential.
A lot of the art that you do too is primarily people, and I think that it kind of it feeds into itself.
Sure.
Because,
I'm friendly.
Right, you're a social person, and you want to be surrounded by people, and you're always drawing people, and it's always amazing the accuracy that you're able to get in a matter of minutes. You know, just what you did here. Just being able to capture them, you know, just in a few minutes of while we're talking, and you're just kind of casually sketching away. In fact, I don't think I ever see you without at least a notebook in your hand or you know, something with you to draw at all times. And a lot of times you'll just, you know, be in the middle of a conversation and pull it out and start drawing, or you know, be at dinner or something like that.
Sure.
And, you know, start sketching.
Well, what happens is naturally as a language, if you think and process your day in words, and I do it in drawings, but they're both lines. It's all lines. It's all language. But the interesting thing about that is when you talk about drawing people, one interesting thing that has been something I've been keeping to myself because I think it might freak people out a little bit.
Say
that's
it.
been happening. You want to hear something that's a little bit freaky?
Freak it out.
Yeah.
So the more you focus on anything you do in life, you'll end up noticing it even when you're not doing that. So if I, for instance, spend a lot of time trying to look at how fabric of a sleeve folds when it's rolled up and the elbow bends, like Mark's sweater is, I'll look at that.
Show off my guns, man.
I'll look at him showing off his guns and the effect that it has on the fabric wrapping themselves around those guns. Even though I'm not drawing, I'm still looking at that. So if I'm looking at the characteristics of a face, which I'll call the landscape of a face, which is what I have to look at if I'm doing courtroom or any type of descriptive drawing where there's some type of likeness necessary. So there's also the element of age. And I'll think about what marks might be made to draw a fashionable woman where you remove certain lines from the face to keep her looking young that some people might put in. And we've all seen the tattoos that someone might get of a child somewhere on them, and they'll put in every single line and crease of the face and outline every single tooth. And the more you delineate something, the more it draws the viewer's eye to it. And then it looks like you wouldn't want to get your finger too close to that baby's mouth because it might get chomped off. Right?
You're saying that the baby looks scary?
Sure.
yeah.
Of course.
The Train
of
Spotting
course.
baby?
Yeah. And what a great movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, and that's the thing. Also, now with that, you draw enough and you're a film guy, you end up watching, you develop your eyes and you end up appreciating movies like that more, because Train Spotting is certainly a movie that you could pause throughout the movie at so many times and see a really great example of composition and color.
Oh, sure.
And how the figures are placed through. But what I wanted to talk about that is kind of freaky. If you still want to hear the freaky thing, and then we can answer your question about education. Because even though we're jumping
we
around,
always come back.
We'll always, no matter how many branches we climb out on, we'll find our way back to the trunk of the tree.
Hey, we just take a scenic route, man.
And we're on the scenic route.
Yeah.
All right. Mark is driving, and we're sharing our Ziploc bag of Cheerios in the back. So. But one thing I'm finding myself doing, like I'll catch scenes like watching Train Spotting. I'll think maybe dedicating an eye to the visual attraction of things would lend a notice to that all the more quickly. But with looking at faces and seeing what lines of a face make someone older and which ones you'd keep out to make someone younger, and drawing faces after faces after faces. When I see people in the street now, it's happening more and more that every person I see, I imagine what they look like when they're elderly. And I could see it. I could see how their faces are going to develop because I've drawn so many chins, so many mouths, so many noses, so many eyes, and how the skin surrounds those features of every age. I start seeing how really there are certain sets of certain types of features. And through people's lives, as I've drawn so many people at different stages of their lives, I could kind of predict how their face is going to form. And it's something that's only hit me recently.
So it's almost like this weird forensic.
Perhaps, but
You know
I
what I mean?
never intended to do it. But I look at people and I immediately see how they're going to look when
Please
they're old.
don't tell me.
Am I okay?
Don't draw me.
You are all stunning. A certainly stunning podcast crew.
I'm just a little balder. That's probably about it.
Yeah, but he has to
Wasn't
draw
that-
less hair.
Wasn't that
That's just
your?
easier.
But that's kind of like a mythological figure's name, I thought, right? Like you were going to grow up to be some great giant killer. I think when I first met you and we swapped email addresses, yours was littlebalder@aol.com.
Is it a joke or is that real?
No,
Well, I
it's
think it was
totally-
Little Balder 47
totally a
because
joke.
he wasn't the first to ask for it.
Especially that tag, that username.
No,
Little
my
Balder 47.
I've had the same email address since like Gmail started. It's a tool reference,
Yeah,
and that's it. I think that's the
I'm totally
the only
cool
one that
with
I've had.
I'm totally cool with your email handle. I love it. I think it's a great email.
littlebalder47@aol.com.
Yeah, and Maynard.
Send your comments to
Yeah, see, Maynard can-
littlebalder47@aol.com.
If that's not registered already,
Well, I'm not buying any more websites.
Yeah, what are we doing with the other one that we
Nothing
bought
right now.
last week?
Ghost Huggers.
Yeah,
Jimmy, did you get .org
.net.
or .net?
we bought a
I
website
think
last week.
org was very expensive.
Org was expensive.
was like
Dot .tv.
$36
No,
or
Dot
something?
.tv was expensive.
Oh, that's right. I think we got.
I got .com.
I got
This
two
week
of them.
on
I got
NEPA Scene,
actually. I bought three of them.
Little
I did buy the
Balder
.com
versus
too.
you
So
bought
Org.
3 of them?
I bought .org. I think it was .org, .net, and .com.
All right, so we're gonna have to make sure that all of those redirect to NEPA Scene.
I bought .com.
and Ted needs to be our new radio announcer. He can do all the
NEPA
intros.
Scene. Tune it in and rip the knob off.
That's if we were a classic rock station,
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And the most classic rock.
You should get down there. You should get down to the Times Building and just do it right.
I thought you meant dance. You should get down there.
Yeah. Don't be scared.
All right, so Lauren's question was about education.
Of course it was. She asked the intelligent ones.
And so I said, I have to say that I'm most proud and excited, as well as benefited from graduating from the MFA program at the University of Hartford under the direction of Murray Tinkleman, who's a Hall of Fame illustrator from the Society of Illustrators. And my work in educating has me this week teaching at the Society of Illustrators in a program called the Drawing Academy that's led by illustrator Abby Merrill. And I'm also happy to be teaching in that program with Leslie Coburn Gentry, who is the official Strathmore artist as I hold up this pad. I don't know if that's the sound that goes with Strathmore paper.
It does. It does.
And she's a stellar, radiant rock star, draw star artist who also directs music videos. And she's the daughter of Hall of Fame illustrator Alan Kober. And she teaches at the Fashion Institute of Technology, where I speak on a semester by semester basis on courtroom illustration and drawing live music and some topics in between.
Is it difficult to teach?
Okay, so tying that in with something that you said earlier about surrounding yourself with people, when you're in that environment, there's no better place. If you have the right teacher and people in an administration who believe in and trust the teacher, and you have students who've had good parents, or maybe they came from some rough areas but are open to a good, positive, encouraging environment, it could be a place like nothing else. Because when I was young and in school and was doing assignments that weren't simply for tests, which I bet has something to do with you saying why you don't read. Usually people who say they don't read start off with having teachers who taught classes who give tests that are only for assessment to prove that the student read the book, and questions
Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah.
questions are along the lines of what color handkerchief was the butler holding over the plate when he entered the garden that has nothing to do with the appreciation of the literature. So bringing it back into a class,
it's almost like gotcha education. That form of education. That's why I didn't like.
Oh, like gotcha! You didn't read it.
Yeah,
you're marked up.
Instead of being like proactive and saying,
right,
hey, what was this about? I was more concerned about like what was this about than the minutia of like in what year did they go to the garden?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that doesn't serve the story. It doesn't
Sure.
serve like you're never gonna read that on the jacket on the back.
Sure.
Stephen King's It was not about like it never said like this red-nosed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they would never describe.
Well, it's just like an art history class. Most art history classes are taught for students to remember what goes on the label, who the artist was, what year it was done, what movement it was, and what part of the world it was, and then they can walk into a gallery and tell you what the label reads.
See, the more like if I had to do that, the more important thing to me was like I went to when I was in film school. I went to film school in Orlando, and they had the Ringling Museum of Art was in Sarasota.
That's a great school.
So I went over there, and we went because we had an art class for some reason in film school, but it was what it was. But it was like we went through a semester a month, so you really didn't have a lot of time to just like kind of like soak it in and live with it. And there was this kid there that went on the trip with us, and he was like, "Oh, that's expressionism, and that's blah blah blah, and that's blah blah blah," and it was like, and it was stuff that was just like went all over my head, and the more important thing for me, and I can only speak personally, is that I would have been more interested in like, okay, well, why did that movement happen? Like, who started that movement? Why was that period of time,
right?
Primarily this type of art.
But that's what you have. You have the key element right there is you have the interest.
Yeah.
And even if it's followed by frustration for not knowing, that's still good because, and this doesn't even have to be isolated to art. In any type of education, you need the interest, and the frustration for not getting what you're interested in learning could often propel you all the further to learning it.
Jimmy, not trying to throw you under the bus.
Yeah.
In the last 6 years? You've been teaching 6 years?
8.
8 years?
This is my 8th.
Has the interest gone down due to
In what? Now,
in the students?
has my interest?
No, not your interest. I know where you stand on everything, but have you seen the students' interest go down just because you're teaching to a finish line? You're teaching to standardized tests. You're teaching to, instead of really getting the information in a way that the students can learn it.
The most rewarding years that I've had have been when I got to know my students in terms of like just discussing with them, what are your interests? It could be an honors class. It could be a general ed class. It could be a college-bound class. It could be a technical school-bound class. If I can relate something to cars for a group of kids that love cars,
Like
they're going to learn. They're going to learn so much. For an honors class, if there's certain things that I can find that they are related, that I can relate to, and relate my lessons to it, that's great. But some classes just are kind of not approachable. There's nothing you can do to please them because they just don't want to be there. Period. They don't seem to care.
See, now I never.
And I haven't, and different methods that I try, I can't seem to crack the code as to what would get them to care, because even consequences, they'll do the bare minimum. I've had kids come up to me and say, "How much are these worth? How much is the essay worth?" And they'll do the math so that they'll just do just enough to get a passing grade.
Now, when I went to school, it was never because my mom's a teacher too, and you have to live up to these state standards where that's going to dictate what
kind of funding you get,
Right.
and how the school runs.
Right. It's like, well, your grades are down, like in your class. Why are your grades down? Because they're not hitting the Pennsylvania standard of whatever. And when I went to school, it was totally based on, like, we had the PSATs, the SATs. What was it? The ACTs too?
Yeah,
Wasn't there an
SATs and ACTs.
ACTs. But every inspirational teacher that I had, every teacher that I had that made me interested in what they were doing were allowed to teach in the way that was suitable for them, that they felt comfortable teaching, and what was most relatable to the students.
Well, that's totally it. Otherwise, it's
But that's not
common denominator.
What I'm saying is that's not what's happening right now. And in schools today, it's
They're not allowed to teach.
They're not allowed to teach.
Right.
You're allowed to. And Jimmy, what is it? Repeat after me, basically like that.
Yeah.
Which I think is incredibly sad and has sucked the soul out of
and you have to hit certain standards, and everything is to the standard. And
Everything
even looking back
requires
at
an
my
assessment.
education, the teachers that stand out in my mind are the ones that tailor the class to the students, not just reading from a book of bullet points, which that's been reduced to that. When I started education, it's like bait and switch. The profession that I went into is a completely different profession than what it is now. It's just standard driven and number driven. Right now,
quantitative.
I don't want to get into too many specifics, but right now, one of the big concerns of all the schools in the area is the SAT scores, because they hit the papers last week. And how do you address poor scores on SATs? Do you drive students away from the SATs that shouldn't be taking it, in your opinion, as an educator? Or if you feel that their interests lie in something else, not college bound or not bound to a school or a college or institution that is going to be looking for SATs or ACTs, do you drive students away from those types of tests? Is that the way to bring the scores up, by telling kids that, hey, this seems to be your interest. Why don't we find a way to make this work for this class? Why don't we make it work for this class? Or, if you're going to be driven toward an institution that wants SATs or ACTs, okay, you're going to be on this path, and what can we do to bring the scores up? Everything at the bottom, the score comes before the student, unfortunately. It's all numbers.
See, I bring this up because you teach collegiately, right? So,
well, I teach all sorts of levels. Right now, I'm focused on high school levels, doing artist in residence work.
But I mean, that's not like mandated.
It's golden, because they bring me in as an artist in residence. I'm not grading. I'm just I'm there to excite, motivate, inspire, and show them how a life in art makes my life more full. And it's really all about the true gratification of it, because what you're talking about, when it's about the qualitative approach other than the quantitative approach, when it's all accessible and it's all about assessment, well, that makes it very easy for the teacher to grade, because you can use a grading key if everything is about numbers and letters choices, as opposed to more thorough essay, or if that's something like a written test, or if you're talking about gearing it towards the students. But if you're going to make it lowest common denominator, what all the teachers could teach together in a universal standardized way, and what the students should know in a universal standardized way, to be teaching students to do exactly what's necessary. Like you say, Jimmy, the students come up and say, tell me what I need to do to get the grade. If things get pushed along in that mentality where you're doing only what's necessary to get the grade, and the goal is the grade, that letter that goes down on the paper, doing what's necessary to get that letter leads to a life of just doing what's necessary to get the paycheck. And then you have people who just go through their day to just watch the clock and get through the day, as opposed to doing something that's really meaningful in their lives, as could be initiated in the classroom by showing why literature is meaningful. And then you have students who want to read. And most people you talk to who like to read started with teachers who made it very exciting to read.
But the point of me bringing that up.
Right, but let me say one thing. So when you're now there's software that tracks the teacher based off of the student's performance, because now as a teacher, your part of your pay, or the decision, well, what should I say? Part of your evaluation as a teacher comes directly from how well the kids do on this one test on this one day when they're in 10th grade. Now, if you get called into the office and because one click of a mouse can show all these students under the one teacher. Oh, well, all your students only 25% of them moved forward or whatever since their last test. Now 75% of them either stayed where they were on the last test or have done worse. Now I want to see what you've done in the classroom to improve that based off of these standards. And they'll hand you a checklist or whatever. There's a checklist there, or all standardized things that you have to match now. And it's not about tailoring it to individual kids like it was in the past, because everything has to be to these bullet points and to these things created by the state. So, I mean, yeah, maybe you can take those and be creative in some way, but the burnout that you get in teachers from that that's why, what is it? I think the average lifespan of a teacher now is about 5 years.
Something like that.
And the
Wait,
reason
you mean professional lifespan?
Yes, they're done. They're looking for new careers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and and the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the resume that you have and the involvement that you have in the institutions and the organizations that you have, such as on the after high school way of looking at things. It concerns me because the passion of the student coming from high school, which is your formative years, are now, as you said, they're going to be worrying about the clock and the paycheck, right? They've had nothing to inspire them. They've had nothing to say, hey, maybe life can be looked at in so many different ways. Right. It's just, just like being in the courtroom, doing drawings or being in a room, you actually, and to put it in a film term, you don't have to do the wide shot. You can do the tight shot. What does the tight shot mean? What am I trying to, they're not getting the opportunity to explore things outside of what the grade is.
Yeah, truly.
Which to me hinders, in my opinion, the ability to creative problem solving, to being creative, to thinking outside the box, to having ingenuity, to having, that's why. So
that's all
I bring that up.
important.
I bring that up to the concern of being like, what you see coming in the years to come might be a little bit more not as fulfilling or disappointing.
Yeah.
Which makes me sad, because I know my high school got rid of we're gonna keep the football team.
The arts are the first thing to get cut.
But we're gonna get rid of the art class. We're gonna
That's
get
why
rid of the
music-
photography class. We're gonna get rid of the music class.
Right. Well, a great way to.
I'm not putting you on the spot here. I'm just.
No, you can put me on the
I'm
spot.
totally cool.
I'm an on the
throwing
spot
myself
artist.
under the bus. I'm cool with that.
No, we're fine. We're fine. We're all friends.
That's a concern that I've had for years.
When there was they talk about teaching college and teaching high school and other levels. I've also done workshops for when teachers have in-services. I can't remember the
Professional
acts
development.
that they have. They have to get certain
PD points.
Yeah, whatever it is, and there's some numbers or something that they have to get, whatever type of to keep their certification going. There, what they're required to do on in-service days. Anyway, I would do a workshop in drawing for high school teachers, and one thing I thought, which is a great thing to start people with because it's a very difficult thing to do and something that everybody has. Well, I said, okay, I want everyone in the room to draw your hands. And a really interesting thing happened that showed the SAT mentality, because if you take a room full of people and give them a paper and a pencil and say, draw your hand, I bet you know what they did. That's right. And
they outline their hand on the piece of paper.
Right.
Yeah.
It's good you're thinking about the listeners at home who don't
Yes,
have
I am.
video.
I have to say it out loud. Yeah.
And it's great how the two of you raced to trace your hands as if you were on a game show without a buzzer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what they did was they traced their hands. Well, what does that show? They're showing they want to get to the end as fast as they can to give you the desired product without experiencing the process. So they're not as interested in looking at their hand and seeing what it is that makes this hand interesting to draw, but they just want to give you exactly what you ask for, nothing more, to make the requirement.
And these are the educators.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to rip them, because I think most people in the world who aren't accustomed to drawing their hands or doing something that would lead them to a greater perception and motivation to draw hands would probably do that. But it just shows that mindset. where we're not thinking, no one will stop to look and think, okay, what is this and what's the direction
What is
that
my
I
hand?
want this hand to be in? And if you took an art student who's drawing well and has a good teacher, they'll take a good look at it first. So, but that's an interesting thing. So then I said, next to them, I said, okay, well, I'll make it a little harder. And now you all have to draw your hand with, and I said, you can't outline your hand. It must be, you have to keep that line at least, I said your hand has to be 1.5 times as big. So what did they do? They put the hand down and then they traced it like as if it was Bugs Bunny hand and like they blew it up from the thumb.
Right.
And, right. So it's always, it is that mentality. Like Jimmy, you say it's show me, how do I get to the finish line without finding my way through the course? Or as you said earlier on, to tie things in together, the scenic route.